The first rule of pirate recruitment is that no one ever admits to being recruited. One moment, you're teetering at the edge of Port Royal's wharf, pockets clinking, with exactly 3 copper maravedis and a thimble pilfered from your aunt. And the next, you're eyeballing a sheet of parchment held down by a dagger that still drips someone else's reluctance. The moon, fat, judgmental, acts as the only lantern. The quartermaster, Mr. Silas, 2 thumbs left, Briggs, encourages you with a grin, showing fewer teeth than a responsible skull. Scratch your name, he rasps, or at least the bits of it you're willing to have carved on your tombstone later. Before we jab that quill into destiny, indulge a small act of nautical courtesy. If my soft-tied voice keeps the cannons in your head from firing and lets you drift toward sleep rather than the nearest reef, take a moment to tap a like on whatever device you're sneaking under the covers. Only, of course, if you truly enjoy these brine-soaked lullabies. Drop a comment telling me from which latitude you're listening and what ungodly hour your cabin clock insists it is. Mapping our midnight fleet of listeners has become my favorite smuggling route. Now snuff the lantern. Maybe let a fan hum low like distant surf, and join me as we slip, quiet as bilge water, into tonight's plank walking reverie. You sign, ink so gritty it might be powdered reef, and the dagger lifts itself as if satisfied. Contract sealed. The quartermaster slaps a tarred thumbprint over your name, anointing you property of the brigantine Mourning Star, a vessel whose figurehead depicts a cherub crying blood under a cracked halo. Silas pockets the parchment, whistles twice, and from the fog materializes a skiff rowed by a man they call Fishbone Jim, on account of all his fingers resembling just that. You're bundled aboard like wet laundry and ferried toward the dark silhouette of the ship. Close up, the Mourning Star resembles a floating gallows draped in wet canvas. Lanterns swing on yard arms, each flame protected by a glass stolen from a church chandelier. It still bears flecks of stained glass saint. A boarding rope greets you out of nowhere, slithering down like a friendly serpent. Silas gestures. Climb or swim. The harbor stinks of shark gossip. You climb. First breath on deck smells of pitch, salt, and something that might once have been oranges. Captain Thaddeus Flint stands at the rail, coattails snapping like impatient barracudas. He regards you through a spyglass at absurd proximity. Deck swabber? He inquires. Silas shakes his head. Quarter gun loader, Captain. Strongish back, allegedly passable eyesight. You aren't consulted, of course. Pirate HR is famously streamlined. Flint nods. A silver coin appears between his knuckles, vanishes, reappears behind your ear. Pirate magic doubles as intimidation. Mind, he says. On this ship, promotion's easy. You either rise through brilliance or float through incompetence. He gestures toward the water where a barrel bobs. Tied to it, inconveniently, is a previous crewman, face half-eaten by philosophical fish. Promotion, noted. The bosun, old magpie, introduces you to your living quarters. A hammock slung between 2 beams directly under the cannon deck. When the 12-pounders recoil, they kiss the hammock's bottom, which means you're destined for insomnia, shaped like iron spheres. Best rockabye at sea, Magpie claims, wedging a cork into one ear. He tosses you a tin mug, filled with something approximating rum, but redder, spiced with rust perhaps. You drink, throat ignites, vision sharpens just enough to notice the warning etched in the rim. Property of whoever drinks fastest. Orientation begins. First station, the gunpowder magazine. Cool, claustrophobic, smelling of bat droppings and last regrets. Powder monkeys, all under 15 and over-caffeinated, dart past carrying cartridges in their hats to keep the powder dry. They grin at you with teeth blackened by saltpeter fumes. You grin back, practicing the facial twitch that passes for pirate politeness. Next stop, the galley, run by a cook known only as Dr. Roast. He claims the title on grounds that his meals can cure hunger by frightening it away. Tonight's supper floats in a cauldron, spine-shaped pasta swimming in squid ink broth. He ladles you a bowl. The spoon returns chunks, shaped suspiciously, like letters. You spell help across the surface, before slurping the evidence. Then up to the helm platform, where the helmsman, blind Elias, blind in morals if not in eyes, explains the ship's philosophy. We don't hunt treasure. Treasure hunts us, because debt collectors are slower. He motions toward the horizon, where lightning flutters like broken semaphore. Somewhere in that darkness, a Spanish galleon, heavy with New World silver, is rumored to limp, sails tattered by a storm that the Mourning Star intends to finish. Opportunity, blind Elias sighs, always smells slightly of mildew. Your final induction test arrives with the moon climbing zenith. Silas drags a tar bucket to mid-deck, draws a chalk circle round it. Swabber's duel, he announces. 2 recruits enter, yourself and a lanky youth named Snipe, armed with deck mops dipped in tar. Object, push opponent beyond circle without stepping out yourself. The loser becomes bilge rat for a month, cleaning the ship's underbelly where eels debate theology. Snipe lunges, you sidestep, mop flicks tar onto his boots, sticking him to planks long enough to shoulder him out. Cheers flutter, tar bucket overturns, baptizing your shins. Victory smell, pine pitch, and impending regret. Captain Flint presents your reward, 1 gold tooth, freshly liberated from a drunken merchant. It's warm. Keep it, he says, but not in your mouth, unless you fancy sharks diagnosing you rich. You pocket it beside Aunt's thimble, family heirloom, now consorting with dentistry spoils. At last, hammocks beckon, cannons groan lullaby, sea mutters below like a prophet with laryngitis. You sway in darkness, every creak translating to some forgotten maritime omen. Above, Ratline's silhouette against star scatter like stitches, holding heaven's torn sail. Someone below decks sings shanty about mermaids charging tolls for drowned memories. You drift, half dreaming, until a whistle pierces. Night watch change. Boots clatter overhead. The ship angles into wind. Sails unfurl with thunderous sigh. Your hammock jolts. Welcome officially to pirate insomnia. You close your eyes again, clutching gold tooth, imagining tomorrow's dawn when the Mourning Star will chase that wounded galleon. Gunpowder monkeys will scuttle. Dr. Roast will season fear into breakfast. And you, deck swabber turned quarter gun loader, will find out how much sea fits into a cannon before it decides to stay. Sleep now, listener. Let waves slap hull like a mother shushing an unruly brood. May the bellied sails above you whisper stories fit for nightmares, but trimmed in humor, dark as squid ink. And if, in that drowse, you feel hammock kiss from cannon recoil, simply smile. Pirate lullabies arrive with a recoil and depart with loot. The first cannon shot of dawn is not intended to hit anything. It is, according to Captain Flint, the maritime equivalent of coffee. Loud, bitter, wakes the neighbors. The 12-pounder sits 3 feet below your hammock, so you receive the caffeine jolt through your spine. before the smell of black powder even crawls into your nostrils. You tumble out, tar still stuck to your shins from last night's mop duel, just in time to see Powder Monkey Tadpole ignite the touch hole with a grin that contains more enthusiasm than teeth. The gun bucks, the hull sneezes, and someone in the forecastle shouts an oath so pungent it makes the figurehead blush. Above deck, the sky is the color of raw mackerel, streaked pink where sunrise stabbed it first. Blind Elias has the helm, his one good eye squinting at a star that apparently overslept. He barks a correction. Port, 2 points. Mind the reef, shaped like a debt collector's mood. Sails billow. The Mourning Star heels, and you taste salt on a wind that seems to have chewed iron filings for breakfast. Quartermaster Silas, 2 thumbs left. Briggs appears from the companionway wielding a ledger and a piece of chalk. The ledger tracks everything the crew eats, steals, or accidentally sets aflame. The chalk is for marking offenses directly on offenders' backs when paper feels too forgiving. Seeing you, Silas draws a small asterisk between your shoulder blades. The pirate glyph for rookie liable to explode. You thank him. He reminds you gratitude is suspicious on this ship. Dr. Roast rings the mess bell using a femur tied to a rope. Breakfast is sea biscuits flambé, which means hardtack warmed over an open barrel of lamp oil until it tastes faintly of regret. To soften the biscuits, you dunk them in black grog, 2 parts rum, 1 part boiled coffee grounds, 1 part water recycled from condensation on the brandy still. The liquid winks malevolently in the mug. You swallow anyway. Immediately, your vision sharpens enough to see the rats along the rail, raising tiny cups in salute. While you chew, Captain Flint addresses the crew from the quarterdeck. His voice, equal parts sandpaper and sermon, outlines today's itinerary. We pursue the Spanish galleon Santa Dolorosa, last seen limping like a bishop at low tide. Her hold is stuffed with silver ingots and crates of cocoa beans, both exceptionally valuable unless you have cavities. The plan is simple. Intercept before noon, fire a warning broadside, board amid the smoke, and convince the Spanish to part with their cargo by offering them lifetime supply of hardtack, a threat, not a gift. Flint pauses to flip a coin, the same silver piece he magicked from your ear last night. Heads, we approach starboard. Tails, we approach starboard angrily. The coin lands heads. He nods, as though fate has variety. Your station is gun crew, starboard midships, gun number 2, affectionately called Nancy, after a legendary courtesan who once stole half the governor's wardrobe and sold it back to him at double price. Nancy is a bronze beauty with pockmarks older than most nations. You swab her bore with brine-soaked sponge, load powder bag, careful not to spill, powder monkeys hiss if you waste their wages, and ram home a round shot engraved with the phrase, polite knock. Tradition says, writing civil greetings on cannonballs confuses victims long enough for pirates to climb the rail. Mid-morning the lookout, perched in crow's nest, with a parrot he won in a stabbing contest, spots the Santa Dolorosa. Canvas off the larboard bow, he squawks, parrot echoing with better diction. You scramble to position. Silas stalks the deck, marking last-minute corrections on crew. A minus sign on a gunner, wiping sweat. 2 exclamation points on Powder Monkey Tadpole for attempting to juggle powder horns. Magpie. The bosun ambles by, hammering loose nails into bulwark while humming a lullaby about krakens with indigestion. As distance closes, you glimpse the Spanish ship's tattered sails, storm-chewed and patched with priestly vestments. Apparently their chaplain had fabric to spare. Yet her guns, black and sulky, still poke from every port. Flint shouts orders. Blind Elias angles the bow, so sunlight blinds Spanish gunners. Timing is everything. When Mourning Star rises on a swell, you run Nancy's barrel out and wait for Silas's thumb, left one, of course, to drop. Thumb drops. Tadpole touches match. Nancy roars. The recoil slams. Hammock memories rattle in your bones. And the polite cannonball sails across blue space. It strikes the Santa Dolorosa's forecastle bell. The gong note sounds surprisingly cheerful as it departs in fragments. Spaniards respond, less politely. Their shot skips off your quarterdeck like a disgruntled pebble. Decapitating Dr. Roasts, stew cauldron, hot fish bouillon rains, crew curse seafood for second time this hour. Grapples fly, ships kiss hull to hull, with a crunch you feel in molars. Borderlines tense. You and Snipe, freed from bilge duty thanks to your tar trick, swing over rail. Spanish Marines greet you with pikes, but hesitate at your mop tar scars. Apparently, a sign of either bravery or fungus. Battle on deck is chaos choreography. Roderick moves through smoke, Mercy humming, though spine of blade turned to flat for non-lethal encouragement. Captain Flint wants prisoners who can testify Silver belonged to pirates all along. Mid-fray, you notice the parrot? Yes, the lookouts. Has deserted perch, and now flutters amid Spanish rigging, screaming, Union meeting, in perfect Castilian. Spaniards confuse, glance skyward, allowing Flint to disarm their captain with flourish of hat plume. Surrender negotiated. Santa Dolorosa agrees to hand over Silver and Coco if pirates promise to tow them to nearest friendly port. Flint consents, adding clause. They must also relinquish their ship's bell to replace the one Nancy shattered. Loot transfer begins. Ingots clang onto Mourning Star's deck like musical punctuation. Cocoa crates follow, exhaling aroma that almost masks bilge. Dr. Roast eyes beans, already plotting sinister recipes. Among spoils is a brass birdcage containing second parrot, emerald feathers but no voice. The lookout instantly stakes claim, eager for bilingual duet. Silas sets auction rule. Parrot goes to whomever can teach it a profanity the captain hasn't heard. Contest scheduled. Next calm. While crew sweat cargo, you explore Spanish captain's cabin with Flint's permission, which he gives after probing for hidden pistols behind your ear. Habit. There you find maps, silver filigree crucifix, and diary entries lamenting phantom voices in hull each night. Voices you discover are rats gnawing cocoa, sugar-buzzed and squeaking madrigals. You collect map, leave crucifix, bad luck to steal salvation on Tuesday. Back aboard Mourning Star, Silas tallies shares on-deck ledger, chalking each name, sometimes adding asterisks for those likely to drink advances. You earn half share as quarter gun loader. Snipe earns quarter share, plus new nickname, Sticky Boots. Powder Monkey Tadpole tries to claim hazard pay for juggling powder. Silas awards him chalk mustache instead. Evening bleeds gold across waves. Tow line secured. Ships drift in uneasy tandem. Predator escorting prey. Captain Flint hosts celebration. Cocoa rum grog, spiced with mint stolen from Spanish galley. Dr. Roast unveils seafarer's brownie. Hardtack ground into flour, mixed with cocoa and despair. Surprisingly palatable. During revelry, you climb to forecastle. There, blind Elias steers both vessels with bare hands, intuition, and occasional advice from parrots, now perched, one on each shoulder, debating grammar. He tells you, storms chase silver shipments like children after sweetmeats. We must slip away before moon sets. You relay to Flint, who orders sail trimmed, cocoa stacked as ballast. Sweetness doubles as ballast and morale. Night deepens. You return to hammock, cannons now purring like iron cats after victory. Before sleep, Silas drapes blanket over you. Chalk asterisk upgraded to tiny star, his closest mark of approval. Down and hold, ingots clink lullaby. Rats sing drunken hymns. Somewhere the mute parrot practices curse words in hopeful whispers. You close eyes, gold tooth warming your pocket, thinking of tomorrow's sea, always hungry, always offering promotions to those who survive the test. Sleep, listener, to the creak of lines and distant bilingual profanity rehearsals. Dream of cannonball letters, cocoa-scented breezes, and contracts signed in shadow, but paid in sunrise silver. And if waves rock you awake, just remember, it's only Nancy begging politely to knock again. When dawn finally rubs salt from the sky, the Mourning Star and her one-bellied captive, the Santa Dolorosa, drift side by side like guilty twins shackled at the ankle. Overnight, blind Elias has threaded both bows through a serpentine course of shoals, using nothing but memory of tides and apparent debate on subjunctive verbs. The shoals now cup the two ships in a lagoon so secret, even the charts blush. The air smells of cocoa beans sweating their perfume into sunrise, and of Spanish sailors quietly reconsidering theology amid the snoring of pirates. Captain Flint calls muster on the main deck. Quartermaster Silas, 2 thumbs left. Briggs clacks his ledger shut, chalk poised like a dagger for numbers. He announces the loot tally, 43 silver ingots stamped with the pillars of Hercules, 10 crates of cocoa, minus whatever Dr. Roast siphoned for test brownies, 3 bolts of clerical silk pilfered from the Galleon's storm-patched sails, 1 replacement ship's bell, and, clearance cough, 2 parrots still negotiating bill of sale. Applause rings, cannons creak for attention, and a small school of flying fish vaults clear of water at the noise, possibly to investigate corporate hiring opportunities. Silas unfurls the articles for share division, and here the mood tilts. Blind Elias claims extra 8th share for navigational wizardry, which triggers Powder Monkey Tadpole to petition for hazard stipend after inhaling unspecified amounts of cocoa dust while scrubbing gun decks. Snipe Sticky Boots wants compensation for tar removal, and Dr. Roast demands a cut of the silver to purchase cinnamon. A brownie without spice is merely a sin. Captain Flint listens, rubbing the bridge of his nose, a place cartilage goes to retire after too many arguments, then declares an interim currency, dead men's coupons, redeemable only on board, exchangeable for rum, better hammocks, or the right to punch someone who snores. Gervais. The bosun forges the first stack using scraps of the Spanish captain's diary. The irony tastes delicious. The cocoa, even more. While the crew bickers over coupons, you scribble event minutes, perched on a coil of rope that still reeks of last evening's seawater. Across the rail, Spanish prisoners mutter prayers or maledictions, hard to tell apart when sung through cracked lips. Captain Flint has promised them safe tow to New Cartagena. In return, they man the bilge pumps and swap nautical gossip. Apparently, 2 British frigates patrol these waters, hungry for anything resembling contraband or sarcasm. The information ranks somewhere between useful and inevitable. By mid-morning, a problem floats up, literally. The lagoon's current delivers a barrel, wearing a corset of barnacles. Powder monkeys fish it out, expecting brandy, but the lid reveals a sealed bundle of letters, all addressed to the Mourning Star. Each envelope carries the red wax insignia of the Caribbean Postal Consortium, a skull winking. Flint breaks the first seal and groans. The letters are ransom demands for sailors presumed drowned in last year's hurricane. Some genius bureaucrat determined the ship owed back pay to its lost crew. Failure to satisfy the debt will authorize bounty hunters, corsair accountants, to seize assets equal to the intangible value of grief. Wickram's chalk snaps. Silas's remaining thumb twitches. Debt collectors in this hemisphere travel with cannon-mounted abati. Flint orders immediate course change toward the uncharted Widow's Way, an inky corridor of sea-rumored, haunted by lantern fishers, phantom vessels that fish for souls with hooks baited in regret. If the frigates chase, they'll have to brave that superstition too. Roderick approves the strategy. Mercy stays sheathed, but seems to vibrate at the word souls. Course change demands sail adjustments, which means hauling the Spanish Belle to the mainmast top as counterweight. A perfect apprentice job. You and Snipe Sticky Boots climb ratlines, bell clanging like a sermon each time it taps your knee. Halfway up, clouds clot over the sun. Wind reverses, cold as a banker's handshake. From the lagoon entrance, a fog shoulders its way inward, swallowing shoals. Blind Elias yells, but fog eats his vowels. Bells no dread. It tolls itself, one mournful bong that sets parrots screaming contradictory weather reports. High aloft, you reach the cross trees. Lash bell in place. Through fog, you spot shapes sliding on mirror water. 3 dark hulls. Lanterns unlit. Not British frigates. Silhouettes too crooked. Masts sag like debts unpaid. Lantern fishers. Or corsair accountants flying cost-cutting rig, you shout. Echo dies in woolly air. Snipe hands you spyglass. In blown focus, you glimpse figures on nearest deck, wearing ledger green coats. Faces hidden by cloth masks stamped with currency symbols. Their bow cannon sports brass counters for each blast. It flips one digit from 000 to 001. The boom reaches you an instant later. A chain shot whips through shrouds, slicing 2 lines. You and Snipe cling as mast shutters. Below, Silas barks for action. Captain Flint chooses flight. This fog his shield. Blind Elias spins a wheel. Sails snap, bellying to catch wind that hasn't decided direction. The Spanish Galleon, under tow, wallows like a cow on ice. Flint curses, orders towline cut. Gervais hacks rope. Spaniards cheer, then curse when they realize they're drifting into fog with debt collectors. Cannon duel ensues. Nancy and siblings counterfire with polite Knock's angrier cousins. Excuse us and return to sender. Chain shot whistles back, decapitating the ale barrel queue. 1 coupon-rich crewman dies clutching vouchers. Proof that company script yields no hazard pay. Amid chaos, Dr. Roast hatches mutiny of his own. Leveraging cocoa to calm nerves, he begins trading cups of hot brew for coupons at usurious rates. Half the gun crew now mainlines chocolate. Gunnery slows because mugs require 2 hands. Flint smells treachery in the stew steam, but bullets first, beverages later. Roderick strides deck, hood absorbing fog like ink blot. He commands ceasefire, to everyone's shock. Debts collected in gunpowder rebound with interest, he declares. Instead, he opens powder magazine, orders monkeys to fill shot bags. Not with lead, but with the captain's cache of dead men's coupons. In under a minute, Nancy swallows its new payload. Tadpole grins. Payday. Aye. Match sparks, cannon roars, and a confetti blast of ripped vouchers sails into fog. Distant hulls thud, not with iron, but with IOUs fluttering onto decks and drifts. Spyglass reveals confusion. Ledger green coats scramble, trying to tally rain of forged debt receipts. Their cannon counters stutter. They can't fire while reconciling paperwork, overwhelming their audits. Flint seizes moment. Full sail dash between ghost hulls. Bell above clangs victory like a drunk choir. Dr. Roast pours cocoa into bilge to lighten load. Rats surf tidal waves of sugar. Fog opens like a theater curtain onto clear sea. Widow's Way proves myth true. Faint lights bob on horizon. Perhaps lanterns fishing souls. But they steer clear when they hear the bell's lunatic toll and see coupons drifting like snow behind. Blind Elias charts course south toward Island Haven's Skull Key, neutral ground where debts wash overboard with rum. Captain summons assembly. He pardons Dr. Roast's cocoa inflation. Innovative morale scheme, but finds him one parrot's profanity per cup sold. Silas revises ledger. Coupons officially worthless, but now effective ammunition. Roderick files mercy, remarking that sometimes paper cuts deeper than chain shot. You jot quote. Night falls. Stars peek through ragged cloud, finally apologizing for oversleeping. Hawkins, the lookout, teaches mute parrot, new slur involving octopuses. The bird giggles silently, promising tomorrow's scandal. Cannon deck reeks of burnt vouchers and bittersweet chocolate. You slump in hammock, recoil thud, now lullaby rather than alarm. Thoughts drift, silver debts, cocoa riots, counting pirates who fear confetti. The bell aloft whispers through mast, half lull, half unpaid invoice. Sleep, listener, on creaking timbers that settle like cash drawers closing. May your dreams weigh lighter than ingots, and should debt collectors appear therein, remember they can be baffled with enough useless paperwork, ideally fired at high velocity. The moon, happily recovered, stands watch, making sure no one loses it again. The lagoon of Skull Key is shaped like a broken jawbone, a crescent of cliffs whose teeth, stalactites baked by tropical sun, still seem eager to chew visiting hulls. As the Mourning Star slips through the narrow inlet, she is immediately greeted by a flotilla of dinghies, paddled by island inspectors wearing tricorns, far too dignified for the rest of their attire, which consists mostly of patched breeches and a sash that changes color according to their bribe expectations. Captain Flint stands at the starboard rail, coat freshly brushed, the silver tooth in his grin calibrated to dazzle exactly 15%. He knows the ritual. Skull Key operates on one guiding principle. Every coin must cross a palm twice before it counts. Quartermaster Silas Briggs produces a small chest of dead men's coupons and offers it as processing fee. The leading inspector, Comptroller Greaves, pokes the paper notes suspiciously. We accept only liquid currencies before noon. He sniffs. Silas shrugs, tips the chest into the water barrel, and now the coupons swish about like soggy confessions. Transaction complete. The harbor itself is a festival of improvised architecture. Taverns built from retired gun carriages, chandlers who sell lamp oil by the thimble to sabotage each other's illumination profits, and a floating market where every stall is moored to the next by rope strangled in promises. Above them all, on the ridge, looms Fort Miscalculation, an abandoned Spanish battery now occupied by Skull Key's ruling council of bickering smuggler families. Cannons there are rumored loaded with nothing but rocks and curses. But the bluff alone keeps warships polite. First order of business, offload the silver ingots into bank vaults made of coral and paperwork. Blind Elias navigates the ship alongside a crusty quay whose surface is slick with spilled molasses from last month's sugar riot. Gervais supervises the winch. Each ingot drops into a cart pulled by goats with bells tied around an X. Not for charm, Silas explains, but so thieves know how far they've run. While the goats clatter uphill, Captain Flint leads delegation, yourself included, to the Harbour Exchange, where docking and rum taxes are negotiated. Inside, air smells of salt, rot, and ink. Ledgers sprawl across tables, like half-dismembered octopi. The exchange's chairwoman, Widow Vandre, raises one eyebrow at Flint. Last time you anchored here, you paid duty in barrels of counterfeit prayer books. Flint bows theatrically. Reformed, madam. Today, we tender cocoa and thunder. He gestures toward two sample crates. One emits heavenly chocolate aroma, the other faint crackle of bottled lightning. Widow considers. Cocoa she needs for black market chocolatiers. Thunder she covets for intimidation. She names a duty. 20% of each crate, plus proof the silver ingots aren't cursed. Silas counters with 10% and a complimentary parrot performance. They settle at 15, and a promise that any curses are exclusive to competing traders, not bankers. While paperwork grinds forward, you explore Skull Key's bazaar. It swarms with pamphlet peddlers, bone dice riggers, and a matchstick sculptor carving the devil, kissing a tax assessor. Dr. Roast shops for cinnamon, sniffing each spice jar like a sommelier while muttering about cocoa rum truffles. Powder Monkey Tadpole negotiates sale of leftover Dead Men's coupons as collectible souvenirs. Limited edition, slightly damp. Snipe Sticky Boots bargains for tar remover, but ends up buying another pair of sticky boots. So goes pirate commerce. At high noon, a bell forged from melted manacles rings from Fort Miscalculation. The daily rum tax is due. Skull Key's law is that every crew must contribute 1 dram per man or face auction of their soul's quiet moments. Rum lines form instantly. Flint dispatches you and Snipe with 2 jugs and a ledger. The rum booth is run by Priestess Una, cleric of somewhat dubious mercy, who measures spirits with a chalice shaped like a skull, missing its top third. She pours. You pay in brand new coupons, freshly dried, hoping moisture count doesn't disqualify currency. Halfway through the queue, commotion erupts. A merchant brig named Good Intentions refuses to pay tax, claiming holy exemption. Rum militia, local toughs wearing barrel-stave epaulets, advance with cudgel-led persuasion. The brig's crew pull pistols. Within seconds, the square is a symphony of cocked flintlocks and spilled rum. Captain Flint, never one to waste chaos, signals Silas. If fight starts, we liberate contested rum and sell it back later. However, Widow Vandre steps between factions, wielding only a quill as if it were a rapier. Paperwork first, violence second, she commands. Everyone grudgingly holsters arms. Fearing forms more than bullets. Crisis postponed. Rain sweeps over island mid-afternoon, drumming on tin roofs like impatient creditors. You retreat to tavern named the Gibbeting Lark. Walls lined with broken hourglasses. Here, Flint hosts parley with a Skull Key's cryptic, neutral broker, Mr. Crake, a man whose waistcoat pockets jingle with both coin and teeth. The topic, fencing the cocoa to the French without alerting British frigates, rumored to lurk off Windward Channel. Craik proposes disguise. Compress beans into cannonball shells painted black, ship them as edible artillery. Price good, risk ridiculous. Flint slaps table, done. Meanwhile, Dr. Roast unveils trial batch of cocoa rum truffles, laced with chili so fierce sailors cry tears that etch grooves in deck planks. He convinces Silas to allocate ration coupons for dessert. Morale, after all. Jesters steal tray, trade truffles to local printers in exchange for pamphlets titled Why the Rum Tax is Actually a Ponzi Scheme. Pamphlets disseminate faster than insects on fruit. By dusk, tensions simmer. Rum militia intercept pamphlets. Realize taxation could crumble if crew laugh too much while reading them. They march toward Mourning Star to arrest jesters. Roderick intercepts on gangplank. He stands motionless, hood damp, mercy hidden, but aura clear. No one crosses without regret. Militia leader, Sergeant Cork, blusters about civic order. Roderick silently hands him a single cocoa truffle. Cork scoffs, bites, and promptly experiences spiritual rebirth via capsaicin. Eyes watering, he declares he's just tasted the devil's handshake and decides pamphlets are harmless compared to that fire. Militia withdraws in search of water and meaning. Nightfall paints Harbour sapphire. Thunder jars glow faint on deck like captive constellations. Blind Elias calculates tide for midnight departure to meet broker's contact ship, the Bonbon Bouclier. But a snag. The Spanish prisoners, anchored offshore in their severed tow-line galleon, have launched a small boat, rowing toward fort. They intend to betray us to British frigates for pardon. Look out, Parrot, spots them first, screeching new curse it learned. Royal snitches kiss Cod's arse. Alarm raised. Captain Flint convenes rapid raid plan. Intercept boat, swap their plea message with forged note that directs British to sandbar of death. You volunteer Quill. Silas drafts letter in flowery Spanish extolling safe harbor coordinates. Coordinates actually those shoals we escaped days earlier. Under moon, you and Snipe row quietly, guided by Bell muffled with wool. Boarding the Spaniards' dinghy mid-row, you scare them senseless with Parrot's bilingual profanity. They surrender note. You hand over forgery, plus small keg of rum. Call it distractive diplomacy. They toast your generosity. Blissfully unaware, they've signed their pardon on shift and sand. Returning, you pass under Fort Miscalculations cliff. Lightning from jar-powered beacon arcs, momentarily revealing carved motto, all debts wash ashore. Sobering, but you row faster. Near midnight, sails set. Mourning Star weighs anchor. Cocoa disguised as cannonballs lies in hold beside silver, signed as collateral for next bribe. Skull key recedes, its lights blinking Morse of greed and survival. The parrot tutor successfully teaches mute parrot to croak more taxes, more grog, in British accent. A future PSYOPs asset. Captain Flint raises mug of chili rum. To debts answered in paper snow. To cocoa that shoots. And to moons we promise not to misplace tonight. Crew drinks. Roderick remains at rail. Hood reflecting starlight like coin. You ask if he trusts forged letter to fool Admiralty. He taps Mercy's hilt. Even ocean's red lies, if you cast them deep. You retire to hammock. Cannons quiet. Coupon confetti still lodged in crevices. Dreams come spiced with chili and echo of barrels singing after every wave. Somewhere behind, Skull Key's bells toll, rum tax. Ahead, the sea opens dark ledger blank for tomorrow's math. Interest payable in powder or pastry. Sleep well, listener. may your debts dissolve like soggy coupons, and if you taste chocolate fire in your sleep, no Dr. Roast is experimenting again, and most likely, no one is safe. The moon spent the small hours trudging west like a washerwoman overloaded with dirty sheets. But by first light, the Mourning Star had already rendezvoused with the French courier brig Bonbon Bouclier. She floated off our larboard bow, looking like a patisserie that had been taught basic gunnery, hull daubed robin egg blue, figurehead a cherub brandishing eclair and saber. Her captain, Jean-Luc Gaspard, greeted us in a frock coat that smelled of clothes and self-esteem. Quartermaster Silas, 2 thumbs left. Briggs supervised cargo exchange. Our 12 edible artillery spheres of compressed cocoa slid down gangplanks while the French loaded 7 casks of claret, 5 hogsheads of cognac, and 1 crate of mysterious clockwork labeled in cursive Rire Assuré, laughter guaranteed. Silas logged each transfer, Chalk squealing like a rat dragged across fiddle strings. Captain Flint and Captain Gaspard, arms entwined, toasted their brilliance. With snifters of brandy so young it still believed in manners. But business stumbled on a pebble. Gaspard demanded proof the silver ingots had been banked on Skull Key to settle our joint debt to the secret smuggler's pension fund. Flint produced a stamped receipt. Widow Vandre's ligatured signature curling like a venomous eel. Gaspard squinted. "Forgery?" he asked. Flint smiled, revealing that single glinting tooth. "Only if ink can lie about numbers. It doesn't understand." Gaspard shrugged. In smuggling, philosophy merely slows profit. By mid-morning, the brigantine and patisserie gunboat parted amicably, each luffing sails towards separate horizons. Our hold now brimmed with drinkable fire, clockwork mystery, and Widow Vandre's IOU stubs, which Silas immediately rebranded as Series B Deadman's coupons. He embossed them with an anchor and a sideways wink, collectible, but only until insolvency. The sea stayed courteous for perhaps 3 hours. Then the lookout shouted, "Royal Ensign Astern." Through the spyglass unfurled a British 6th rate, the HMS Unyielding, 32 guns, sails bleached to sermon white, prow carving water like a judge chopping petitions. Evidently, our letter from the Spanish turncoats had reached Admiralty dispatch desk faster than hoped. Worse, the frigate signaled with flags spelling "Heave to for inspection." Cocoa contraband suspected. Flint's jaw tightened. Blind Elias spun the wheel toward a nearby squall line that brooded like unpaid rent. The ocean here bore no friendly shoals, only the open teeth of oncoming weather. Flint turned to Roderick. "Think we can scare them?" The executioner lifted Mercy an inch from scabbard. Edge flashed, message delivered. Plan: feed the frigate a theatrical broadside of cocoa rounds. Powder monkey tadpole and snipe sticky boots broke open our disguise balls, refilling each shell with half powdered chocolate. Dr. Roast volunteered a pinch of chili for bouquet. By the time Unyielding closed to shouting distance, Nancy and her sisters sweated spicy fumes. Silas raised a white flag daubed with the parrot's latest profanity, stalling the British just long enough to bring guns to bear. At Flint's signal, a flourish of the silver coin, our starboard battery let fly. Chocolate shot burst mid-air in a brown cloud that drifted across the frigate's forecastle like a confectioner's apocalypse. British sailors coughed, eyes watering. Officers wiped cocoa from epaulets, with expressions suggesting the Empire's breakfast had suddenly attacked. Unfortunately, the wind shifted, blowing half the cloud back onto us. Deck planks morphed into skating rink of slick sugar oil. Snipe's fresh sticky boots earned new justification. Blind Elias cursed geography. Nancy's recoil slid her 6 inches aft, crushing a barrel of claret that immediately joined the melee, staining cocoa swamp burgundy. Dr. Roast pronounced it molecule-perfect dessert sauce, utterly unapologetic. The frigate recovered quicker than we. A warning shot whistled overhead. Their captain, Sir Percival Stride, bellowed through speaking trumpet, "Surrender cargo and identify yourselves." Flint replied with equal volume, "We are the Royal Independent Confectionery Inspection Service, conducting field experiments. Results? Sweet." Stride's retort arrived as chain shot that lopped away our larboard cathead and one unfortunate hammock still occupied by a man known only as Dentless Dan. He survived, merely shorter by pride. Flint needed new trick, fast. Silas remembered Gaspard's mysterious crate. Under tarp, revealed brass canister with crank and valve. Stenciled instructions, in polite French, advised releasing gas for mass amusement. Convinced it was laugh-inducing chemical, Flint ordered winch rigged to boom the barrel outboard. Pointed straight at British gun ports. Powder monkeys cracked valve. Hiss. Invisible cloud drifted across gap, carrying faint odor of apricots and dentistry. Moments later, the unyielding erupted, not in flame, but in laughter. Bow guns fired prematurely as crews collapsed, convulsing in giggles. Officers doubled over, swords clattering. Sir Percival's trumpet squeaked cartoonishly. Even gulls, perched on yards, cackled. Flint's crew stared, stupefied. Roderick alone kept posture, though hood tilted as if suppressing chuckle. Opportunity demanded boarding, yet our deck still treacherous with cocoa claret custard. Solution? Sledding. Gervais ripped shutters from captain's cabin. Volunteers flopped atop, pushing off toward frigate on tensioned grapples, like sugared cannonballs themselves. You, inevitably scribbling, found quill yanked from hand as sticky boots dragged you onto a makeshift sled. Crossing felt like flying through pastry fog. We landed amid laughing redcoats, too weak to resist. Weapons confiscated, lines severed, helm seized. In quarterdeck cabin, we located Admiralty orders. Seize Mourning Star, confiscate piratical cocoa contrivances, and apprehend one hooded executioner for crimes against appropriate silence. Roderick scanned warrant, nodded once, then fed parchment to cabin stove, where it curled into ash-shaped, vaguely like a taxman's frown. Meanwhile, Silas and Tadpole redirected choking gas back toward Mourning Star to disperse cocoa slick. Pirates applied sand from ballast, regaining footing. Within half an hour, we had prize crew aboard the frigate. Captain locked in wardroom, still hiccuping laughter. Guns spiked with caramelized chocolate. Flint declared time short. Squall line nearly upon us. He chose daring exit, lash Unyielding's wheel to leeward, set her canvas, and send her ghosting nose first toward the sandbar coordinates we'd earlier gifted the Spaniards. Admiralty loves cartography, he reasoned. We carried off what we could. Powder, small arms, and crates labeled Imperial Tea. Extremely boring. Dr. Roast cackled. Chili tea infusion experiments already brewing in his depraved mind. Back aboard Mourning Star, Parrot staged commentary duel. Lookout's veteran bird screamed, "Empire tickles itself," while the formerly mute parrot finally uttered first phrase, a perfect Admiralty accent, chirping, "Spiffing defeat, old chap." Crew lost 10 minutes to laughter, nearly as dangerous as gas. Silas, pragmatic, began taxing every guffaw 1 coupon. The squall swallowed frigate horizon. We slipped southward under reefed sails. Blind Elias plotted route to Isla de los Lamentos, uninhabited save rumors of freshwater lagoon and convenient cave for storing cocoa until French buyers paid second installment. Silas drafted new ledger page. Assets: 1 crippled British Ego, 2 parrots, vocationally upgraded, 17 barrels claret, 16.2 after leaks, 5 hogsheads cognac, 1 laughter cannon, spent, coupons, innumerable. He scribbled footnote. Liabilities: Emperor's Navy now thinks we're funny. Dangerous. Evening calm returned. Deck scrubbed of dessert residue, some saved for future ramming. Wood smelled like bakery after firefight. Captain Flint convened officers for toast of cognac cocoa blend. Scorchingly sweet. But victory deserved cavities. He looked at Roderick. Edge rested again, yet Empire knows your silhouette. The executioner replied, Silhouette is credit, redeemed only when fear forgets. Flint sighed. May fear continue its amnesia. Below, you collapsed into hammock, parchment swollen with ink-soaked victory. Thoughts drifted, dead men's coupons whipping through barrel gas. British frigate, helpless with glee. Confectionery warfare, rewriting naval doctrine. Overhead, parrots rehearsed shanty. Yo-ho-ha-ha, seize the day with ganache. Even Nancy the cannon seemed to purr contentedly, barrel still coated in chocolate glaze. Sleep, listener, under strange reassurance that laughter, properly weaponized, can sink anger faster than lead. Tomorrow likely brings new creditors and stranger ammunition, perhaps tea grenades or sermon-filled mortars. For now, let the sea rock you like custard in a galley pot, sweetly menacing, and dream of ships where every broadside ends with dessert. By the time the Mourning Star rattled onto the lee side of Isla de los Lamentos, the crew was half thirsty, half suspicious, and entirely convinced that somewhere in the wind, a curse was blowing ashore with our bow wave. The island rose like a crooked grin from the sea, a narrow strip of black sand rimmed by coconut palms that bent toward the water, as if begging for a bribe. Under those palms, faint voices whispered between leaves and rotted fronds, promising fortune to the bold or doom to the foolhardy. Captain Flint, face lined from too many sunrises at sea and too many regrets made permanent by brandy, stood at the wheel and sniffed the gale. Water first, he ordered, then treasure, then escape, if we're not all too dead. His sincerity carried weight only Long John Stubbs, who'd lost both ears to a tropical fever, could rival. Stubbs offered a nod so strong it unsettled his leftover hair. Below deck, Powder Monkey Tadpole prayed silently, at least until someone spiked his cocoa ration with a drop of gunpowder that sent him sneezing curses so eloquent even the parrots paused. We rowed, or rather crawled ashore, in a jolly boat lined with barnacles and regret. Blind Elias, brandishing 2 lanterns tied to a walking stick, acted as guide through tangled underbrush, where every vine looked eager to ensnare a boot or neck. Gervais balanced the supply chest on one shoulder, muttering about coconut smuggling laws and calorie deficits. Dr. Roast carried a mortar and pestle, loaded with dried chili skins, tasting air as though the island spice were his only hope. First stop, the freshwater spring near the island spine, where rats cowered behind rocks and watched our approach, tails flicking in conspiratorial rhythm. Flint filled barrels, while Evo, the ex-silence-monger, scrawled tally on a coconut husk ledger. Every drop counted as debt repayment to Skulky, and possibly to some vengeful island spirit. When our barrels brimmed, we discovered the rats weren't mere rodents, but something between mongoose and hallucination. Eyes glowing green, teeth gnashing with insectile hunger. They charged. Blunderbuss volley echoed through palms. One rat house collapsed under powder blast, releasing a shower of fleas for everyone's dismay. We pried barrels away, leaving a few mangled corpses to starve. Hunger and thirst, both satisfied, we hacked our way through a narrow trail toward the rumored hidden grotto. According to local pirate legend, cobbled together by monk-turned-smuggler brother Abel, a Spanish monk once buried a chest of emeralds beneath a fallen temple door. The price for entering the grotto, legend said, was a single coconut, currency of the damned and meal of the damned. As the story went, at midday, the sun pierced the grove like a blade, illuminating moss-coated carvings and broken statues in a ridge of collapsed stones. Roderick, hood pulled low, stood before a crumbling arch where a pair of stone sentinels, slick with lichen, flanked the entrance. A crude inscription warned trespassers in Spanish, "Abuse not the hospitality of the dead." Flint cracked a grin. "Hospitality is overrated," he quipped, prodding the lintel with his boot. Gervais tossed a coconut. It ricocheted off a sentinel's cheek, splitting wide. A hollow clink rang from within, as though the sentinel thanked us for breaking its fast. Dr. Roast, keen to document new curatives, harvested fragrant moss for ointment against fears of echo. He declared that smelling fresh moss could ward off curses common to unwashed temples. Snipe Sticky Boots, meanwhile, tossed a second coconut that split on a compromised flagstone, revealing a rusted iron ring attached to a granite block. "Keyhole," he exclaimed. Stubbs, no longer talking to himself, struggled to fit the ring into a fissure. A stone gave, groaning like a wounded elephant, and slid aside, revealing a yawning abyss. Below lay a spiral staircase, slick with moss, and illuminated by motes of phosphorescent fungus that clung to walls like horrified moths. The air smelled of wet earth and stale incense, an odd pairing, suggesting human offerings rotted alongside fragrant herbs. Flint drew his cutlass. "If it's cursed, let's be gracious and curse it back." We descended into damp dark, each step echoing like a lie auditioning for the gallows. At the base was a cavern painted in crimson streaks. Ancient blood, perhaps, or pigment from fruit. Hard to tell. In that light, we saw the chest. Iron-banded cedar with a lock shaped like a grinning skull. Next to it, carved into bedrock, was another inscription. "Offer a drop of life. Receive tears of eternity." The words glistened, as though freshly sealed with something wet. Flint eyed the chest, then his crew, then suggested a drop from our cache of fresh water. "Cursed water returns to Fox the Exiled," Roderick murmured. But Flint splashed a bit on the lock anyway. The stone shrank back, making room for iron to cast its feast. Gervais pulled at the lid. A cloud of dust bloomed. Inside lay a dozen pouches of emeralds, so lustrous they glowed in the fungus's sickly light, plus a ring made of human finger bone twisting around a tiny emerald skull. Dr. Roast snatched bone ring, muttering, "Excellent for refining chili spice." Flint stopped him. "Leave artifacts be. They're smaller debts than tithes unpaid." He scooped pouches into a sack. Evo etched tally marks on hushed coconut ledger. As if on cue, the cavern trembled, floor cracking like old parchment. We scrambled out just as the stone lid fell shut. sealing dread and emeralds inside. Above, dawn mist had begun to settle on the cove, like spilled pewter. We navigated the stairs back into phytotoxic sunlight, branches scratching skins like minor penance. Several parrots overhead echoed, "Trespassers belong to tides," though none of us recalled teaching them such poetry. Back on deck, the pack of emeralds divided. Captain Flint took 3 pouches, Roderick took 2, Mael insisted on 1 for mint taxes, and the remaining went to crew shares. Tadpole got extra for rat debacle. Snipe, sensing a pattern, pocketed the bone ring. It winked emerald fire against his smirk. Flint approved pocketing. Use bone skull for barter. Fear has weight. Evo logged distributions on Husk. We set sail as midday sun built towers of heat across the lagoon, the island's gloom receding behind us. No sooner had we hoisted sail than the sky darkened, not with clouds, but with shapes. A flotilla of canoes carrying half-naked islanders painted with stripes of crimson and white. They paddled to meet us, holding up coconuts carved with faces, whispering in tongues that blended sorrow with invitation. Suddenly, Flint bent to parrot. 2 parrots now perched on his shoulders, formerly mute and formerly Coast Guard, each croaking a warning in French. Les dieux du sel réclament votre tête. The gods of salt demand your head. The islanders neared, spears pointed, eyes gleaming. Silas barked orders. Hold position. Offer gifts. Gervais heaved a pouch of emeralds overboard. Emeralds splashed like commas into blue, followed by a crate of coconut rum. Islanders caught coconuts deftly, broke the husks on aluminum-headed clubs, and sprinkled juice on deckboards in ritual circles. Then they drifted away, chanting vowels that seemed to echo from coral hollows. Blind Elias, leaning on rail, nodded. They accept tribute. For now. Relief washed half the crew pale. Flint scrawled another note on Husk. Debts pay, with blood or bounty. As the last canoe vanished, Evo counted whistles. 7 in Portuguese, 3 in Yoruba. Parrots flapped to join, each repeat turning into a chorus of disquiet. That evening, we anchored beyond headland, where novelty met misery. A cove of phosphorescent plankton that glowed under hull like scattered stars in a dusky bowl. Below deck, Dr. Roast began chopping chili bone ring powder into rum, promising flavor of eternal remembrance. A few volunteers sipped. 1 vomited emeralds, garbage from 2 deep mulligatawny. The rest laughed until ribs ached. 1 pirate claimed he saw a glowing fish recite Shakespeare. They paid each cough with a coupon. Meanwhile, Roderick conducted a brief inquisition over the bone ring. He declared it cursed, but worth bargaining. Any curse on Buddha dust would end when ring submerged in salt water at full moon. We agreed to return it to Skull Key's Lagoon, where curses could mingle with dead man's coupons and blossom into something more useful than regret. In the wee hours, we loaded small boat with bone ring, an extra pouch of emeralds, and half a barrel of rum, rationed for our ritual. Flint, Roderick, and Ivo rode beneath waning moon, silent except for oar-hushed waves. We reached the reef, where phosphorescence stabbed the water. Ivo kicked over the pouch. The emeralds sank quickly, glinting until swallowed. Roderick held the ring with gloved hand, whispered an incantation that sounded suspiciously like last orders from Spanish confessor. He tossed ring into surf. For a heartbeat, the ring hung like an ember, then sank, leaving a ripple that shimmered like memory. On return, we learned the rest of the crew had drunkenly seized 2 crates of clockwork Ryer Assuré and rigged them as laughter mines. across deck. At each step, crates hissed and released bubbles of laughter fuel. Some pirates collapsed in giggle limbs before gravity drew them down to the plank. Finally, someone shoved the crate overboard. It bobbed for a minute, then released a last booming laugh that echoed against island cliffs like the gods themselves had mustered a chuckle. Morning found us with one less cursed artifact, but two more stories about emeralds that vanished into coral, about an island whose spirits tasted rum, and about a bone ring that had given us 20 minutes of immortality. Before sail, Flint toasted, to curses laid to rest, to laughter that nearly killed us, and to debt-free souls, for now. The crew drank. Some wept, some laughed. Parrots squawked in dignified unanimity. Requiescat in salt. As the Mourning Star weighed anchor, the wind filled sails with salt-laced hope. The horizon beckoned with promise of Jamaica, or perhaps a rumored pirate republic, where kings owed more than they collected. But first, rum needed mixin', ledgers needed ink, and pockets needed filling. The sea, ever-patient undertaker, cradled our hull, guiding us toward debts not yet due. Sleep now, listener, under cloak of bioluminescent tides. Let whispers of emeralds and bone rings drift behind your lids. Remember, curses drown easiest in salt, but laughter binds us to troubled memory. And if at dawn you spy glowing fish on your doorstep, welcome them gently. They may be friends or remnants of last night's alchemy, but until proven false, they're at least worth a moment's wonder before you swab the deck of dreams and hoist sails for tomorrow's folly. The word passed among the crew at dawn like smuggled contraband. We would call upon Saint-Malo, a harbor city rumored to host more ghosts than actual residents. The Mourning Star threaded through gray sea fog before noon, sails ghost white in the haze. Below decks, grog rations were halved, a gesture to preserve both rum and discipline. Quartermaster Silas, two thumbs left Briggs, counted supplies against the ledger's hungry appetite, eyeing our dwindling coconut currency with suspicion. His chalk tic-tac marks grew so dense they threatened to consume half the page, like barnacles multiplying on a forgotten hull. Captain Flint stood at the rail, hooded in his salt-stained coat, peering through an eyeglass that always seemed too small for his ambitions. Saint-Malo's harbor pays in memories and unpaid debts, he warned us, voice gravelly with premonition. Roderick, master of silent counsel and occasional smirks, murmured, "Then let our memory hold the coin. Show them nothing else." Below, parrots rehearsed a new phrase. No promises, keep the dead at peace. An ominous mantra that rattled through the rigging, trailing like a loose rope in the wind. By afternoon, we drifted alongside the breakwater, a jagged rampart of sea-chiseled stone that groaned under wave assault. Tides rose impatiently, warning of a coming storm. The harbor mouth revealed a fleet of ghost-rigged fishing boats, masts tattered like ragged prayer flags, hulls lined with seaweed whiskers. Emily Rose, the lugger's name carved in elegant script upon its prow, swayed at anchor as though begging not to be boarded. Lanterns dangled mid-mast, their flames flickering in patterns that looked like Morse-coded pleas. If only we knew the language of the drowned. Captain Flint hailed the customs barge, half military, half spirit patrol, crewed by officials who never flashed teeth, only frowned with practiced hopelessness. Our boarding party included Flint, Roderick, Silas, Dr. Roast, and Ivo, who lugged ledger and pen as if preparing for final rites. The customs officer, Inspector Castillo, slim as a drowned rat, took one look at our band of misfits and sighed. Saint-Malo demands pre-clearance. What debts do you bring? Flint replied, only debts of honor and chocolate. Castillo sniffed. Our pouches of emeralds and French liquor had more weight than confession. He waved us in, so long as we anchored beyond the ghost line at first light, and offered a vessel tax of 20 barrels worth of rum. The barge slipped away, leaving us helmed by blind Elias, who navigated by feel and whispered star charts. We anchored at dusk in the shadow of Fort Saint-Malo, its ramparts high enough to scrape clouds. The city's silhouette flickered in candlelight, spires and turrets woven into a tapestry of fog. Below deck, Dr. Roast experimented with last night's bone ring to flavor soup. He swore the cracked marrow added umami and spectral seasoning. Silas plotted luminescent debt curves on coconut ledger with fierce dedication, each tick a reminder that nothing in this world is free of price. That evening, Flint organized an expedition into Saint-Malo's old quarter, a warren of narrow alleys where lantern posts bent like nervous shepherds. The crew staggered ashore in a procession half delirious from rum tax and lack of sleep. Roderick was the lone silent sentinel, hood catching stray light, ledger strapped to belt. Snipe sticky boots led our way, promising edible contraband, biscuits rumored to shatter curses with but a bite. We found the baker's shop under a crooked sign reading Gilded Crumb, where Mistress Adelinda rolled dough with pock-marked hands. She offered each of us 2 biscuits dusted in salt and nutmeg, murmuring, curses prey on sweetness. This repels them. We paid in emeralds and silence, pocketing half her haul for supper. With hardened biscuits in satchel, we wound toward the docks, where ghost ships disgorged specters at midnight. Lanterns barely pierced the gloom. Our footsteps echoed among skeletal masts. Then, a wind rose from unseen depths, carrying voices like scratching on wood. Inspector Castillo reappeared, eyes flying wide as the dead appeared on deck, staggering toward shore. Phantom fishermen in rotting coats, their nets snagged on invisible hooks, howled for daylight trade as if chasing wages that no longer existed. The living froze. Roderick's blade glinted, though neither spirit nor man claimed to fear it. Flint raised his voice over phantom lamentations. Show them our honor, or hand them coin. Roderick nodded and tore a freshly minted, cursed repelling biscuit in half, tossing pieces toward ghosts. The biscuits sprang aflame at contact, burning pale blue. Specters scattered, hissing like doused embers, retreating into hulked hulls that vanished when splashed by phosphorescent tide. In that flame, the city exhaled, a shudder, like ancient lungs expelling regrets. On the cobblestones, parrot chorus broke into mournful tune. Eyes of the dead, here fade away. As we watched ghost silhouettes recede into fog, Dr. Roast scooped up coals to flavor stew. Silas chalked tally. Spirits repelled. 17. Flint patted Roderick's shoulder with grudging respect. Tonight, Edge had served as lantern, more than weapon. We pressed deeper into Old Quarter, bisected by a canal where boats floated empty, tied to rusted cleats. Along canal edge loitered beggars who claimed they once lived, now drawn back nightly by curses bound in city walls. They petitioned us for emeralds in exchange for directions to Treasury Gate, where rum tax surpluses mingled with tombstone dust. Flint, habitually generous to fools, offered 2 pouches. Beggars clutched the emeralds, scurried into gloom. leaving only footprints of guilt on stones. At Treasury Gate, half shut under spiderweb steeple, we found a dozen guards asleep on benches, heads pillowed on ledgers. Snipe toyed with his biscuit, tossed a fragment toward a slumbering guard. He ate it, woke, seized guard next to him, and promptly fell back asleep, dreaming of walking through honey. We strode past, Dr. Roast recommending a cinnamon detail if we returned for a full night raid. Inside Treasury Hall, air stale with vault mold, we found empty ledgers strewn like abandoned harvest. Silas examined ledger pages. He pronounced them numerical elegies. The vault doors lay wide, hinges chewed by rust, walls lined with niches now hollow. Flint frowned. Saint-Malo's phantom economy thrived on unacknowledged debt. Our presence felt like too bright candor in a shrine of omissions. At a marble dais, a wooden lectern held a single scroll, sealed with black wax. Roderick pried it open with blade tip. The scroll read, "We welcome coin, but souls are unpaid. Leave before last bell tolls, or join Keeper of Ledgers in perpetual hush." The last line glinted in fresh ink, written by one not dead, but lurking. Flint crumpled it, tossed into smoldering brazier. He motioned exit. On way out, Dr. Roast snagged a small pouch, labeled eclectic seeds, claiming they'd grow nightmares, or coffee, depending on soil. Outside, storm broke like a promise. Rain pelted narrow streets, turning them into rivers of improbability. We dashed toward cabanas, where crewmates awaited, clinging to lanterns and biscuits. Parrot chorus flitted overhead, now chanting, "Night watch be wearier, coins no longer merry." We boarded raft by quay, rode through swirling water to waiting Mourning Star. Lightning forked as we pulled away. In the storm's flicker, we saw Old Quarter vanish behind Gale's curtain. Roderick leaned against mainmast, sword hilt pressing into thigh. "Saint-Malo holds debt of the departed," he whispered. "We've only borrowed their night." Flint nodded, lowering sail. "Our privileges end when we respect nothing but silver." Below deck, biscuits shared. Each bite tasted of salt, regret, and relief, flavors that clung to teeth like currency. Silas balanced the ledger. Emeralds spent repelling ghosts. Biscuits budgeted against untold curses. Rum tax still pending. Evo taped new records on Husk. Debt paid. Phantom toll. Curse status. Suspended. Night watch took station in rain-cooled darkness. Blind Elias guided ship away from Harbour's teeth. Parrots settled silent for first time in hours. You climbed into hammock, lulled by thunder's pulse and rain's lament. Sleep found you on currents of spent curses and open paths to tomorrow's horizon, where new debts awaited in rum ports, coral reefs, and whispers from the next cursed isle. Rest now, listener. Let phantom drums of Saint-Malo fade in your mind's harbor. May your dreams be lighter than ghosts, your ledgers balanced, and if a curse clings to your pillow, know it can be repelled with a half-baked biscuit and a single emerald tossed into moonlit waves. By the time the first light of dawn crept across the Caribbean Sea, the Mourning Star had tied up at the ramshackle pier of Tortuga, a port more notorious for its bribes than its fish. The fog lingered like a hangover, curling around masts and hoisting into every rat-infested nook. Captain Flint stepped onto the dock, his boots ringing against planks slick with rum spills, and proclaimed we were in need of diplomatic subtlety and stronger rum. Roderick merely tilted his hood, as though the concept of subtlety were a myth older than sawdust. Powder Monkey Tadpole hopped along, his cheeks still bitter from last night's ghost biscuit, while blind Elias guided us through the crowd by occasional whistles and the occasional muttered, "Port knot, starboard knot." The locals eyed us like a pack of hungry barracudas circling a wounded seal. Our first target was the governor's mansion, a crumbling, stucco affair, perched on a hill overlooking the port like a disgruntled pelican eyeing fish below. Word was that tomorrow night the governor would host a gala, a riot of silk, furs, and diplomatic graft, where rum flowed as generously as half-truths. Captain Flint fancied we might exchange emeralds and rum for a sealed pardon in writing, and a safe passage free of customs levies. His silver tooth gleamed at the thought. Silas, 2 thumbs left. Briggs clutched his ledger. His fingers twitched, as if itching to tally bribes before they were even paid. Dr. Roast slipped a small vial of chili tincture into his pocket, citing flavor enhancement. Snipe Sticky Boots patted his sticky boots idly, already dreaming of dancing with governor's daughters. The parrots, perched atop masts, squawked in anticipation. Diplomacy tastes like rotten citrus. During daylight hours, we secured lodgings at the Gilded Mullet, a tavern run by patronage and nepotism. Its proprietor, Madame Aurelia, greeted us with a wink that suggested she knew more curses than cocktails. The common room stank of marinara and regret. Tables swayed under the weight of drunken ledgers and half-gnawed tortillas, the latter sold as a local delicacy prone to spontaneous fermentation. We sampled the tortillas, which proved to be tortilla-sized shackles of soggy dough. Once bitten, they induced a brief spasm of existential doubt. Snipe declared them the perfect complement to regret, but refused to buy more until after the gala, lest financial hangovers compound culinary ones. Meanwhile, Roderick commandeered a side room to sharpen Mercy's edge under lamplight, muttering to himself about higher debts than coin. Evo, ledger in hand, crept among the tavern's clientele, tallying suspicious men and women with quills dipped in dubious ledger-green ink. Those he marked with a small asterisk earned his furtive attention later, sometimes as sources of bribe-worthy knowledge, sometimes as targets for careless intimidation. Dr. Roast conducted a burner experiment behind the kitchen, stirring chili into a cauldron of rum for medicinal fumes, he claimed, until the back room filled with heat, enough to remind rats that morbidity tastes hideous. As dusk stained the sky, rose pink, we set out for the governor's mansion. The approach felt like slipping into a cobra's nest, wearing both a horn and a red hat. Marble columns, dusty from neglect, flanked an ornate doorway, inscribed with the governor's motto, "Praise be to gold and graft." Servants in powdered wigs swept the steps, their brooms scraping tormented squeals, as if the wood itself resented being disturbed. Lantern bearers lined the hazards, throwing light on revelers already gathering. Merchant princes in velvet, sea captains whose beards might choke a gull, and government officials whose smiles cratered into frowns if you dared look too long. Captain Flint entered with the assurance of a man who owned half the Caribbean's troubles. Roderick followed quietly, hood low. Evo trailed behind, muttering, 20 emeralds equals X influence units, under his breath. Silas hung back near the entrance as our designated financier, poised to pay any fee that smoothed entry. Dr. Roast brought up the rear, clutching a tray of mini chili rum shots, his secret weapon against diplomatic stiff upper lips. Snipe Sticky Boots pocketed a handful of fancy biscuits, distributed by courteous footmen. He claimed they would distract the governor's daughters. Inside, the ballroom glowed under chandeliers, swaying like weeping brides. A string quartet fiddled a lament about unpaid taxes, ironically setting the mood for a gathering of professional swindlers. Governors from nearby islands leaned on marble balustrades, comparing villainous feats. One boasted of sinking an entire Spanish convoy by replacing its ballast with rotting cheese. Another bragged about bribing the admiral's wife to dye his sails black mid-battle. The air pulsed with powdered wigs and even fresher lies. Flint wasted no time. He spotted a cluster of officials around a table layered in gold leaf and pointed us toward it. The governor himself, Marquis René de Beaufort, presided with a wink that matched Madame Aurelia's earlier. His presence was regal, but weary, as though ruling a small kingdom of fish and fools drained his soul. He wore a coat embroidered with bits of coral stolen from wrecks, and a medallion shaped like a miniature cannon that, rumor had it, fired when he sneezed. Flint approached with a bow refined by years of subterfuge. "Your Excellency," he began, voice smooth as oil in a storm, "I bring tribute from distant waters, emeralds infused with the sea's essence, rum distilled in the tears of mermaids, and biscuits of broken promises." The governor's eye twitched. His smile wavered between amused and homicidal. A footman delivered silver platters of pastries into the gilt of mouths crowd. The biscuits crumbled under scrutiny, revealing faint glyphs inscribed on each. "Don't trust sugar. Promises rot. Deals are bones." Guests took a bite, hesitated, and spat crumbs onto polished floors as if they bit into old debts. Roderick stepped forward, placing a small pouch of emeralds on the table. "For safety and pardon," he declared simply. The governor lifted a single emerald, cold and glistening like the depths of vice. "Emeralds speak," he said, "but words weigh heavier." He touched a finger to the gem, then let it roll across his palm like a stone across glass. Satisfied, he tossed it back. "We accept 3 pouches for temporary residence, 1 for immediate pardon, and keep these biscuits as assurance of good humor and of potential betrayal." He snapped a bracelet made of silver coins that spilled onto the table like obedient rats. "Mingle," he added, dismissing us with a nod. The crowd shifted, interest shifting from biscuit omen contraband to us, as hungry eyes sought any sign of weakness. Snipe Sticky Boots circumvented guards to chat up daughter of port commander, Lady Esme, offering a bit of a biscuit that caused her to sputter chilly tears. Much to her father's horror, she sneezed and fled, cheeks burning, leaving Sticky Boots with a cheeky smile and a cough to match. Dr. Roast offered her a shot of chili rum for remedy, ensuring Sticky Boots would never be invited again. Meanwhile, Evo circulated, whispering ledger entries to wounded vanity. Loss of dignity, -5 points. Potential gossip network, +3. Crisp data for tomorrow's blackmail. Silas doled out cubic ounces of rum in exchange for whispered rumors, corruption levels, secret smuggling routes, and where the governor kept his safe full of unaccounted emeralds. He jotted numbers in ledger, faster than officials could blink. Each entry, a future pawn in his inflation scheme. A sudden trumpet blast announced midnight feast, and our party was ushered toward a long oak table where dishes took forms too grotesque to be appetizing. Octopus tentacles coiled around candied pineapple, roasted iguana stuffed with pickled lemongrass, and a pie so large It required 2 servants to lift. Flint raised a goblet of citrus-spiced brandy. To new friends and friendly debts, he toasted. Guests raised cups, some in drunken zeal, others politely until cup touched lips, spilling liquid in choreographed half-witticisms. Roderick watched vigilantly, sensing that every face beaming now might frown tomorrow. In the center of the room, a tall cage held 2 parrots, one the mute converted to French insults, now attempting staccato curses in English, the other a green-crowned elder, marked with ransom requests pinned to its leg. Guests lined up, paying a coin per insult. The first parrot spat, "Your lady's whiskers tickle her own ego," causing a countess to faint from offense rather than embarrassment. Coins clinked into a small chest. Evo circled, labeling each coin as parrot's tax, admission to shame, in his ledger. When the chest brimmed, Roderick seized it. Dead man's parrot tax, he proclaimed, and donated it to Blind Elias to fund his future ghost navigations. Amid feasting, a rumor rippled. The governor's advisor, Magistrate Leclerc, plotted to expose Flint as a pirate to earn back favor with London. Leclerc was last seen in the gallery, whispering to a wax statue rumored to contain the spirit of a dead admiral. Silas wheeled toward the gallery, quill raised like a bleeding scalpel, to verify if Leclerc scribbled on parchment or sneezed threats at bronze. Snipe trailed him, biscuit crumbs in pockets, as potential evidence. Roderick followed, blade humming beneath hood. In the gallery, the walls were lined with portraits of governors past, men whose eyes seemed to track mischief across ages. At their center hung a massive portrait of Marquis de Beaufort, now with the skull of Marseille glove spray-painted onto his chin. Leclerc bent over a desk, penning a letter to Admiral Hawkins about Flint's notable buccaneering. Snipe stepped barefoot onto a loose floorboard. The creak rang like a ship's bell. Leclerc started, ink spatters on map. Silas began dictation of every squiggle. Leclerc snarled, drawing a rapier. Roderick appeared in a flash, hilt first, rapping blade against desk. A judicial gavel disguised as steel. Words can be sharper than knives, Roderick murmured. Leclerc backed away, pen still clutched like a vampire. Roderick snatched the letter, crumpled it, and tossed into fireplace, where it burned with a sigh that echoed like a phantom complaint about taxes. Returning to Ceylon, Roderick reported the betrayal, minutes above sea level. Floats of unease shimmered among guests. Some slipped heirlooms into pockets, others hovered near exit. Flint took the opportunity to slurp a chili rum shot, savoring both burn and courage. "We retire before midnight," he decreed. "Daylight will bring hungry Admiralty eyes." Procession formed. Masked parrots behind us, rum chest in tow, biscuits eaten as talismans. The dancers' songs wilted into silence behind closed shutters. Back on deck, a storm brewed on horizon, ominous even for seasoned sails. Silas tallied our net gains. Emeralds, unconsumed rum, 3 pairs of biscuits that might ward off curses unpredictably, and a parrot now fined by Ivo for precipitating countesses faint into multiple forms of insurance claims. Roderick perched on the bow, watching Tortuga's lights flicker like dying stars. Blind Elias steered through swelling seas, humming old smuggler shanties, now retooled for cautionary sailing. Keep your wits, or walk the plank, for ghosts can drink and pirates hanker. The storm hit at midnight, salt spray whipping the deck into froth, rain lashing like spat curses. We braced for wind's verdict. Somewhere behind, parrots squawked their final curse. May your debts outlast your breath. The wind carried it off, leaving only the howl of waves and the creak of planks settling into truth. Cannons lay silent, loaded with cocoa rounds. Mercy slept in her scabbard. The storm's drumroll felt like a requiem for illusions. Silver that spun stories, biscuits that defied curses, and promises made to lantern ghosts. Hammocks beckoned in the chaos. You clambered to yours as the ship pitched, tarred boots sliding on decks coated in bracken and rum. The ledger husk, now soaked, floated near your feet, ink bleeding like dried blood. You tucked it under pillow as talisman. Tomorrow's dawn would reveal which debts had been paid and which would drift like driftwood, lost to currents and time. Sleep came fits of thunder-laden nightmares, ghosts of Saint-Malo, lulled by sweets, magistrates whispering false welcomes, parrots narrating curses in shifting accents. But through it all, the rattling ropes and coal train's creak of hull lulled you deeper than any lullaby. Storm sang you a song of debts unpaid and fortunes seized, of parrot curses turned fortunes, and of biscuits baked to break chains. And as you slipped into final darkness, you realized that on these seas, debts are paid not in coin alone, but in memory, in dread, and in the occasional sacrifice of a parrot's unrepentant squawk. At dawn, the Mourning Star limped into Blue Cove, sails ragged from the Tortuga squall, rigging groaning like an old widow's lament. The wind had died overnight, leaving the sea placid and green as tarnished silver. Captain Flint stood at the bow, clasping Mercy's scabbard as though it might shield him from memory. Across the harbor, fishing boats bobbed empty, their nets tangled in barnacle necklaces. No fisherman stirred. The silence felt unnatural, as though farewell had already been bid to every last soul. Blind Elias, perched at the helm, raised his lantern-high staff. The light quivered like a hawk's pulse. Sure reeks of old magic, he whispered. Ghost Brigade, patrols at twilight, keepers of unspoken covenants. Silas, 2 thumbs left. Briggs leaned over the bulwark, snatching a breath of air. Translation? He asked. Elias tapped his ear with crooked finger. Ghosts steer through coins unpaid and promises broken. Use coin wisely. Roderick, hood low, twitched Mercy's tip, as though empathizing with the steel blade that had yet to taste ghost. We anchored near a decaying pier, where planks splayed like ribs picked clean by rats. Dr. Rose sniffed the breeze, extracting notes of rotten fish and something decidedly more sour, fear unspoken. He clutched a vial of chili rum distillate, asserting it would sweeten the cargo of dread. Snipe sticky boots, still sticky from Tortuga's biscuits, jumped from our deck to land and promptly sank to his ankles in mud. Not quite dry land, he grumbled, tethering the yawl to a cracking bollard. Evo scuttled beside him, tallying impressions on coconut ledger. Mud collected per man, to be redeemed for foot scrub at next port. At Flint's command, we formed a landing party, striding gingerly into Blue Cove's settlement. Wooden shacks leaned drunkenly on stilts above murky water. Boardwalks groaned under our weight, and shuttered windows looked like hollow eyes. A solitary bell tower rose jaggedly at the cove's center, its silence more threatening than any clamor. Outside the tavern, a sign read, "No coins, no cry, exchange spirits for secrets." Inside the Weeping Gull, rowdy merchants nursed coffee-dark grog and traded rumors like dried fish. Half-empty tankards showed recent violence. A gouged spot in the bar's plank floor indicated someone had been kicked through. Captain Flint dismissed the tavern's keeper, a gaunt man named Merle, with one missing ear and both eyebrows shaved, as reticent when asked about the Ghost Brigade. Merle spat into Rat's Nest Corner. Ghosts aren't born. They're bred from unpaid debts and spilt blood, he croaked. You bring coin. They bless you. You owe coin. They raise your fear. He gestured over his left shoulder, where a trapdoor in the floor lay unguarded. Descend if you doubt. Flint nodded without hesitation. Roderick, Snipe, and Ivo followed through the trapdoor. Below, a narrow stairwell led to a cavern lit by phosphorescent barnacles clinging to walls like flickering torches. The air smelled of brine-soaked rot. We descended until the stair ended in a circular chamber lined with niches. In each niche lay a skeleton half covered in moss, clutching coins that had turned green with age. Their rib cages creaked as if they might still draw breath. In the chamber's center, a wooden podium bore a ledger bound in sharkskin. Flint approached, uncoiling the ledger with gloved hands. The pages, inscribed in water-diluted ink, listed every pirate and merchant who had ever stopped at Blue Cove, and every transaction left unsettled. At bottom was a fresh entry: Mourning Star, 57 gold doubloons, for passage, rum, and restitution. Balance due, 31 doubloons, payable in full before dusk, or the Ghost Brigade shall claim 2 souls at nightfall. The chamber's rafters seemed to groan with dire approval. Roderick ran a fingertip along the edge of Mercy's scabbard. We pay in full, he said softly. Flint nodded to Snipe, who reached into pouch and withdrew 6 emeralds, most painful portion of our last share. Take these too, Flint added, but they grumble of curses. Roderick placed emeralds on podium beside the ledger. They glinted faintly, as though alive. Evo scraped charcoal across a coconut husk, drafting a receipt that read, paid in emerald and coin, no further claims. We slipped out, as ravens shrieked above, colliding with each other in nervous landings. Back on deck, Silas counted our remaining doubloons. Exactly 26, 5 less than needed. Flint paced, head bowing, like a weathered mariner's peak. We must borrow from ourselves, he declared, an order that silenced us. Dr. Roast produced a bag of dried fish bones, proposing we morph them into cursed tokens to placate the Cove's ledger until we could return. Flint agreed. We dress bones in black salt, chisel ghost glyphs on them. They stand as coin until dawn. Roderick nodded. Bones are bloodless pledges. Ghosts might abide them. And so we set to work, chipping and binding the fish bones with tar, inscribing them with fractal curses and half-promises. By midday, the chamber's ledger contained a new entry: Mourning Star, 31 caskets of cursed bone, repaying debt. Ghost Brigade, deferred to dawn. Niche skeletons rattled thumbs in haunted applause. We withdrew, with hearts laden equally by relief and dread. Flint handed Ivo plum-sized token crafted from bone. Bearer may reside aboard Mourning Star until tides shift. Evo tucked it into waistcoat. Afternoon drift found us leaning on rail as blind Elias steered outbound. The moon had not yet risen. The sea lay flat as obsidian. Parrots, unsettled by bonework, muttered prophetic turtle speak. Shells break silence. Old bones best keep bound. Silas scribbled into ledger. Debt resolved via specter credit. Curse risk, moderate. Dr. Roast seethed chili-laced stew, claiming heat burns ghost smell. But Fortune's wheel spun faster than we expected. At sundown, a flotilla of sails materialized astern. The British sloop, HMS Vigilant, armed with 20 guns and prejudice. Its captain, Commander Reynolds, a lean man with an eye twitch, suggesting he'd never swallowed a lie, hailed us. "Pirates of Mourning Star, your recent exploits have drawn His Majesty's ire. Prepare to give account." Flint approached with calm. "We are merchant explorers, trading rum and recovering stranded vessels." Reynolds's lip curled. "Papist pack of lies," he snarled. "Submit to boarding for inspection." Flint whispered to Roderick. The hood slid back, revealing eyes flickering like midnight coals. Flint pulled the bone token from Evo's pocket and slapped it on deck. "Debt settled here. Blue Cove demands no further violence." He saluted the token, as though committing treason to a dead fish. Reynolds paused, confused by token's presence and unaware of ghostly politics. "Paperwork or face cannon," he demanded. Flint spat. "You carry no papers for the sea's debts." Roderick sheathed mercy. "Let us avoid needless blood." Reynolds hesitated, a glint of doubt in his eye. He bellowed orders. "Board and seize the brigantine." Before guardian boots could thud across our deck, Roderick stepped forward and tapped Mercy's pommel on the deck thrice. A roar rose from deep below. Skeletons from Blue Cove's ledger had come to claim their due. They materialized atop the sloop's forecastle, ghostly pirates swaying in spectral chains, their faces etched with bone hostility. The Vigilance crew froze, cutlasses hovering as if stuck in syrup. Commander Reynolds drew pistol, aimed at apparition leader who raised translucent hand, then laughed a soundless laugh at him. Reynolds recoiled, dropping pistol into sea like an apology to drowning. The Ghost Brigade drifted back into Blue Cove waters as the stars peeked through twilight. With due ceremony, they returned to ledge beneath pier, leaving only faint echoes. The Vigilant drifted astern, sails slack, its crew too unnerved to pursue. Flint seized the moment. "Hoist sail. We're too cursed for His Majesty's peace." The brigantine weighed anchor with urgency, racing westward beneath Roderick's silent vigilance. Night swallowed the sloop's wake as Mourning Star fled toward horizon. Below deck, the crew celebrated narrow reprieve with chili rum toasts. Dr. Roast handed Snipe a steaming bowl of stew, instructing, "Eat fast to forget bones." Snipe ate voraciously, cheeks ignited by spice and relief. Silas posted ledger updates. Debt to Blue Cove, settled through night. Ghost Brigade appeased. Remaining coin, 26. Bone tokens burnt, as needed. Future curses, suspended pending repayment. Before dawn, the storm we'd evaded in Tortuga finally caught us. Cyclone Marinus, spinning at our tail. Rain lashed. Waves roared like old debts calling out, and sails shredded like discarded vows. Blind Elias steered us forward, whispering a half-sung shanty. Ghosts hide where coin falls short. Suddenly, a lightning bolt struck Mercy's scabbard, as though marking Roderick for fate. The hood rippled. Roderick raised blade to sky, channeling Tempest's fury into steel. Thunder answered, an echo that felt like both triumph and funeral bell. In that flash, from the waves rose shapes, mangled debris of a frigate, sailors clinging to broken planks, couriers of chaos from the Vigilance encounter with Marinus. Their mouths opened in silent pleas as watery jaws closed above. Roderick pointed mercy toward the survivors. Flint barked, "Save what we may, but leave no debts unpaid." We tossed ropes, hoisted soaked men aboard. Each clung with cold gratitude. "You sailors," one rasped, "have hush in your eyes." Roderick nodded. "We pay in scarred souls, not gold." With new survivors and ghostly memories tethering our wake, the Mourning Star plunged on into gray dawn. a vessel at once owed and owing, carrying curses in cargo and hope in broken biscuits. We steered toward the horizon, barely glimpsing the setting moon in the storm's grip, certain that next dawn would find us heavier in secrets and lighter in coin, yet still afloat on debts we must someday repay. Sleep now, listener, to the storm's lullaby. Let the echoes of ghostly ledger and cocoa curses fade into dreams. Remember, debts weigh as heavily as anchors, ghosts stir in candlelight, and even a humble biscuit can bargain for your future. And if you wake to find coins missing from your pocket, beware. They might have walked off with the tide in search of their own ghosts. Dawn arrived on blood-tinged waves as the Mourning Star strained against Cyclone Marinus's dying breath. Roderick stood at the bow, cloak billowing like a ghost in retreat. Mercy sheathed, but humming a promise of steel. Blind Elias steered us toward a distant silhouette. Port Royal's city spires, bowed under sunrise haze, where sun-gilded stone met dark water like a promise and its betrayal. The survivors from the frigate clung to the rigging, shivering in salt-damp rags, their eyes wide as drowning sermons. We had saved them, but their gratitude weighed as heavily as the emeralds now gone to pay Blue Cove's ghostly toll. Flint, pacing the deck with a cane blackened by seawater, declared we had one final destination, the sandy docks of Port Royal, where coins could buy absolution, or at least a new set of wounds. Silas, 2 thumbs left. Briggs, ledger under arm, reported gloomy numbers. We start with 26 doubloons, minus 12 for bone ring cancellation at Blue Cove, minus 8 donated to parish orphanage for ghost fees, plus 10 for ransom survivors who owe us no gratitude. Net, 16 doubloons. He paused, chalk suspended like a judge's eyelash, and 0 turtle doves. Inventory lost to storm. Chips of chalk sprinkled onto planks, as though rat claws mapped final debt grid. Flint murmured, "We need that filthy money, or perish as penniless specters." No one disagreed. Port Royal's customs office collected tribute in lead as well as coin, and misery penned the bills. We passed reefs that had tested our metal earlier. The sea calmed to a glassy green. Dr. Roast manned the galley, preparing final rations. Chili rum conch soup with salvage rattlesnakes he'd wrestled from a battered cove. "Good for morale," he said, popping a fang between teeth. You felt it too. That rusty thrill when danger diminishes, but memory crops anew. Snipe sticky boots, sniffed the broth, sighed, and asked if the rattlesnake was rumored to be poisonous. Roast winked and ladled sludge into bowl. Every dish here carries a choice, fear or flavor. As midday burned off the final storm clouds, Port Royal's silhouette sharpened. Its docks teemed with ships in every imaginable state of decay. Merchantmen, Spanish galleons, and a lone French frigate, towing a prize too small for victory. The city walls bulged with market stalls and taverns, each scent stronger than the last. Jasmine, gunpowder, fried fish, and desperation. Roderick, seeing the customs tower loom, tucked Mercy into a canvas bag. "Leave me here," he intoned, "and I will stay with ghosts of ledgers past. But redemption calls elsewhere." Flint held council on the quarterdeck, assembling survivors, crew, and survivors' survivors. "Here is our ledger's end," he announced, brandishing Evo's final coconut husk. "Our debts have been paid in bone and ghost. Our souls owe little else, yet 16 doubloons stand as final currency for Port Royal's tolls." Silas stepped forward, extending chest. Silver flickered in sun. "We offer this to Dockmaster as haven dues." Dockmaster, A bulked man named Haversham, with a nose shaped like a ledger clasp, eyeballed the chest, spat onto the deck, and called 3 assistants who measured the chest with calipers before sniffing its contents. After a silent eternity, Haversham flicked a finger at the assistants, released the ship. Crew can stay until end of market day. Then all hands move on. He pocketed the chest like a man determined to misplace its contents. Relief thundered across deck. Bells in mast bracket offered ethereal clangs that sounded less like victory and more like formal exhumation. Flint raised a rusty hat. First time you'd seen him don headgear in days. Port Royal, grant us quarter under mercy's uncertain terms. Let's honor them in kind. We dropped anchor at a weathered slip where rats scurried from holes like fleeing debtors. Dock workers, lean men with linen shirts and eyes habitually downcast, offloaded crates of rum and silver from neighboring vessels, ignoring us until coin rustle demanded attention. Blind Elias guided us ashore, relying on an internal map of tavern acoustics rather than street signs. The streets, strewn with fish bones and complaint notices, led to governor's quarters, formerly known as the House of Unimaginable Debts, because no one in their right mind expected to emerge unindebted. Inside Governor Hathorn's reception hall, air was thick with incense and discontent. He lounged behind a mahogany desk crusted in official stamps, a face like a judge, oft mistaken for a bulldog. His eye patch glittered with untold cruelty, and a small crystal goblet of brandy sat ready. Flint bowed deeply. Your Excellency, we stand before you as free men, mostly. Our debts in other harbors have been settled. We request clemency for recent commotions and safe passage beyond your waters. Hathorn's gaze shifted to Roderick, who knelt discreetly in the corner. Your executioner's legacy precedes you, he noted, tone flat as a reposed guillotine. Yet you, pirate, have not claimed any heads in my domain. That merits partial gratitude. His wink was a mousetrap. However, you still owe duties: rum smuggling, cocoa gunfire, parrot insults, and most grievously, a debt to my own pocket. He tapped a ledger bound in pigskin. Your share of unpaid harbor dues, 9 doubloons, plus interest measured in questions left unanswered. And for the Ghost Brigade fiasco, I add 3 more. Flint's face flickered like a candle flame in wind. He drew parchment, Blue Cove's receipt of bone tokens and emerald payment, and slapped it onto the desk. Here is record of payment. Spirits abide. Debts merge with memory. I decline double collections. The governor rapped a long nail on desk, summoning attaché, who checked parchments by candlelight. He frowned, then extended a hand. Merely a clerical oversight. Your debts to Blue Cove, which maintain this haven's guard, are satisfied in good grace from the crown's coffers. He spun another button on desk. Consider this letter a royal pardon for all maritime misdeeds, save one. Your parrot's curse on Lady Esme's nose count as minor insult, not treason. Flint exhaled. Mercy, still sheathed, hummed in response. Your pardon is gracious. May it be balanced by our own vow. No ship leaves these waters indebted, except by legacy. Publisher's note in ledger. Balancing scale at 10-1. Feared a favor. We staggered back into streets brighter than we remembered. Port Royal's sun felt like warm judgment. Underfoot, carts rattled with sugar, and rum barrels bound for smugglers' shores. Dock workers' eyes locked on purses, as though each doubloon might sprout wings and fly. Roderick, now unhooded, scanned faces for betrayal. His monitoring visage proved enough. Fewer mendicants pestered us. Fewer hands plunged into pockets. We passed a church where beggars held placards of half-truths. Forgive us for we have taxed. And faith is a currency of last resort. At midday, we reached the Rusty Anchor, a tavern that reclined on sun-bleached planks. Its proprietor, Silas's distant cousin, Jean-Pierre Briggs, offered a free room to any sailor who presented a bone token or ledger entry proving no debt to the dead. Roderick showed his last bone token, earned from final repayment in Blue Cove. Jean-Pierre nearly swooned from delight, fainting into a vat of salted cod. We claimed 2 adjoining rooms above the common, where hammocks hung from ceiling beams smeared with worst memories, sawdust, sawbones, and spilled grog, while crew disembarked chests of rum, emeralds, and biscuits. Flint and Roderick took to the roof deck of the tavern, surveying Port Royal's tattered harbor. Behind them rose the clock tower, copper bell perched above, gleaming in sun, its clapper silent for years. Roderick inspected Mercy's hilt, noting the faintest hum echoing from underguard. The Ghost Brigade may haunt distant coves, but here, ancestors of empire haunt every plank. Flint gestured toward tower. One last debt, time owed to keepers of minutes. We toll that bell once, to mark rebirth, not demise. Roderick nodded, blade fragmenting light like a broken oath. By dusk, Flint had convened final gathering. Crew, survivors, and whatever souls Port Royal felt charitable enough to spare. Among them huddled Blind Elias, Powder Monkey Tadpole, Snipe Sticky Boots, Ivo with Ledger, Dr. Roast brandishing a fresh chili rum shot, and Roderick, executioner turned custodian of balance. Flint lifted his goblet of cider. We have sailed cursed isles, tricked ghosts, and dined on biscuits meant to save souls or doom us. We feared the ledger and its ink more than Cutlass, yet now we stand free of both. So let us toast to freedom, fragile as cheap pottery. He downed the shot. 2 of the men coughed so hard they nearly toppled off rooftop. As twilight stole across Harbour, Roderick climbed the tower ladder, Mercy slung at his back. Leather creaked beneath boots. Above him, an audience of stars blinked through tattered clouds. He reached the belfry chamber, where a single bell hung under a wooden beam. It bore a crack like a smile from shape memory, with stones of emerald gleaming on deck and bone melted to nothing more than ash. Roderick bound Mercy's blade edge to edge across bell rope. He pulled with both hands. The bell groaned, then spoke, a sonorous tone so pure that rooftops paused in testimony. It sounded less like a strike and more like a promise unwinding. Freedom, whether mortal or spectral, arrives with a single ring. Down on deck, we heard the toll echo through every slat and gutter. Even the parrot, confined to its gilded cage, fell silent, eyes round as the moon. Then Powder Monkey Tadpole whistled. Snipe Sticky Boots applauded. Dr. Roast cracked open final chili rum, and Silas hugged his ledger like a long-lost lover, marking off ghost entries with trembling chalk. Flint raised Mercy hilt in salute. The final debt is paid. Behind him, the city responded. Lanterns blinked on, tavern windows glowed, and distant drums of the patrol shifted from suspicion to curiosity. Port Royal exhaled. Its debts, at least those owed by our ragged crew, had ended.